Hello and welcome to the Real Life Alexa channel. I'm Alexa, and today I'm going to talk about Earth Day. So, Earth Day is celebrated on April 22nd annually. And what I learned this week, and probably more shocking because of the nature of our current political environment over the past 10, 20 years, it's definitely devolved worse over the past 10. Earth Day was a bipartisan, very, very well supported initiative in the early 70s. So the website you can go to, it's earthday.org, and there's a lot of stuff on there. There's a lot more information than I am going to cover. Definitely check it out and learn a little bit more than I can teach you today. So in 1962, Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, was released, and it sold quite a lot. Now, she was not the first person to be ringing the alarm on health consequences of pollution and big business and what we were doing to the environment, but her book rung a chord, and it still wasn't enough to galvanize change. It took 7 years. And in January of 1969, there was an oil spill off the coast of Santa Barbara, California. And if you know anything about oil spills, they are devastating to wildlife. And this was obviously marine wildlife. And dead fish, dolphins, whatever, all the wildlife was being washed. Birds, seabirds covered in oil were being washed up on the beaches. A Democratic senator from Wisconsin, Senator Gaylord Nelson, he went to view this oil spill. I mean, hundreds of thousands of gallons of oil. And inspired by anti-war movements, he wanted to sort of get that energy by doing college campus teach-ins, get the college campus kids. I mean, generally the college kids had more, I mean, we see it today in activities, a lot more youthful enthusiasm and energy. He enlisted a Republican congressman, Pete McCloskey, and they essentially created their sort of, a committee of some sort, or I don't know, marketing campaign, outreach. And eventually they chose April 22nd. That was that year a weekday. And they chose it because it fell between spring break and final exams. So hopefully more students would be there. Eventually the name was changed to Earth Day, catching the media attention, igniting that great, it's an asset if the media takes advantage of a catchy name and gets your public, the public to know about you. So that was very good. And it's saying that 20 million Americans, which was 10% of the total population of the US, actually participated, taking to the streets, parks, and auditoriums to demonstrate against the impacts of 150 years of industrial development, leaving a legacy of serious health impacts for humans, but also for other animals in the world. Now, it took before the end of 1970, so less than 2 years, for bipartisan lawmakers to create the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, and passed first of their kind laws. And it's saying they included the National Environmental Education Act, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, otherwise known as OSHA. A lot of us know that. The Clean Air Act, and another few years later, the Clean Water Act. So in the 1980s, additional additional acts were passed, things like the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which I don't think people, I think our knowledge of flora and fauna and of other life on this planet has evolved so greatly over the past 50, 60, 100 years. We've come to know that, I mean, dolphins are some of the smartest living things on, they have very sharp minds. I read something recently that scientists think they've cracked the language, I guess is the way to say it, of whales, and they had an actual conversation with a whale. I need to go back and find more on that article and see it, but that was really exciting. That, I mean, being able to interact with other animals and for them to understand. One of my favorite things is to look at dogs and cats who use buttons to press, as words, and they string together their little sentences. It's phenomenal to see that you don't think about a cat as having complex thoughts, but if you go and you watch some of these channels, that these cats have learned how to use these buttons, and their communication is evolving, and in some of the dog channels too. Obviously, the dogs probably see more, but I'm a cat person. It's amazing. And I'm just hoping that we can do some more bipartisan legislation to make sure that, and not just legislation, but everything in our lives, like everything we do, how we are as a people, we get to choose that. We get to choose who we are and the legacy we leave for our future generations. And maybe there won't be future generations if we destroy the planet, or there could be many, many future generations if we're able to find a way to live in harmony with it again. So, lead in gasoline used to be a very bad thing. That was a very massive health issue. And so now we have unleaded gas. The banning of DDT. Now, I want to say DDT. I'm going to actually search this real quick. It is an insecticide used in agriculture. So that was banned in 1972 in the US, but definitely has been used in other countries. It was replaced by, well, I don't know if it was replaced directly by it, but we now have Roundup, which is, there's going to be a reckoning for Roundup in the coming years. I don't know how soon it'll be, but at one point, I mean, 5-10 years ago, even 20 years ago, people were already talking about GMOs and Roundup and the issues with it. And all of the studies, and this is where you have to use your critical thinking skills. We all do. When you see studies saying that something is safe and it has been funded by the people who sell it, and there's nothing out there that's, saying the opposite, or if it is, they're being sued into oblivion, yeah, you got to side-eye that stuff. You need to have people doing the research who have zero ties and zero benefit to saying if something is safe or unsafe, right? They need to be completely impartial. And in 2008, 2009, I was looking at GMOs and all of the research out there. These people had a reason to be positive about Roundup and say that stuff wasn't affecting us. And yet, just this past week, I saw an article about how Iowa, one of the agricultural big ag states, right? Corn, soy, all GMO, uses Roundup everywhere. Higher cancer rates, way higher than the national average. So DDT was banned in the US in the 70s. It's been banned in basically every other country, I believe, since then. We need stuff like that now. We need to understand that it's not us against them, one side against the other. It's all of us working together to a better future for all of us. And it can be really hard when you are struggling to make ends meet and you have a choice and you can get money and you can do something, right? Like, I get that. it's hard to think of long-term consequences. As humans, this is a psychological thing. We think very short term. We think in, I mean, if we look at instant gratification of the internet, it's getting worse. We can log on and instantly get whatever hit of whatever we want to interaction we want, right? It's hard to think that if I'm okay today, it's not, then it's not harming anyone. But really, in 20 years, you're going to be suffering greatly with the increased cancer rates. The cost of healthcare in the US is going to far outstrip any potential monetary gains that we make in the short term. It just feels like common sense, right? Like, why are we injecting ourselves with poison? And it's not even injecting. I mean, this stuff is in the air. It's in our food. It's literally, you cannot wash Roundup off of certain foods. The food creates it. That's what some of the GMOs, they create this pesticide inside them. It does feel like the tide is changing. A lot of big money over the years has lobbied politicians, and they do it in the back rooms where you can't see or hear it. And I think that that's atrocious. As humans, we need to be held accountable. We need to suffer consequences for bad actions. And the only way people can be held accountable if this stuff is not hidden. Now, I'm more than aware that all knowledge being public knowledge, bad actors are out there, right? Like, I'm not naive. Well, I mean, that's open for debate. You can make up your own mind on that. But protections have been stripped away over the past 20, 30, 40 years systematically by a few very rich people. If you follow the money, there's a few very rich people who have been pushing their agenda and funding people who will push their agenda constantly. And that stuff cannot be hidden forever. It's public knowledge that they've been doing it. And the problem is that people who want to only have what they think is right, whether they are an actual confirmed authoritarian leader of a country, or whether they are a shadow leader using their money and influence to pull strings, either way, they push people too far. And when you push people too far, they will rise up. The oil spill of 1969 was horrendous. I mean, oil spills are horrendous, but it was massive. It impacted 35 miles of coastline, I think it said. I mean, that's a huge amount of coastline. The amount of marine wildlife that was killed, the fact that the press paid attention and got that information out there, it was a galvanizing turning point. And it really sucks that bad stuff, atrocious stuff, has to happen in order for us to be galvanized. But it's almost like that pendulum swings and it goes too far to this way, and then we're saying, no, we're bringing it back. So I do think that, just as a student of history and just as a student of what has been happening in human nature and psychology, and the pendulum is going to swing back. And all of the chipping away at the environmental protections that were put in place, getting around the rules whatever way they can, I think that it's swinging back. In Europe, they're a little bit ahead. So certain industries are being taken to court for knowingly hiding health impacts of some of their stuff. So one thing was recycling. They knew it was they knew it was pointless, and yet they spent all of this marketing to make it like individuals should recycle at home. And they knew that it would not have any impact whatsoever on the actual crisis occurring from big industry and the waste and that going on. And I believe that that is the one that's in Europe. There might be a few of them, but it's similar to the tobacco industry being held accountable for knowing that tobacco was cancerous and hiding that information. There's a lot of industries that need to have that be brought to task kind of moment, like, no, you're going to be held accountable. And I think that there's some amazing stuff happening. I want to say it's Montana. The Supreme Court just ruled that or they were ruling on something. The kids have took a lawsuit that the legislator they are required to make sure Montana is healthy environmentally for them, and they haven't been. It was something to do with that. That was, I mean, the fact that people are rising up and doing that and holding people accountable as in any way they can. It shouldn't be partisan. This is all of us. We're all human, and we all deserve to be healthy. We all deserve opportunity, which we don't all get. We need to, there's going to be some sort of social adjustment in the next, I don't know how many years, but maybe my lifetime, maybe not. And it is definitely a back and forth, a little bit of a cha-cha, although that makes it sound fun. I just hope we can find balance. And we find balance by working together. And that was what made me so excited and made me want to talk about Earth Day, was learning that it was originally bipartisan, that people saw the value of working together for all of us to have safer, healthier lives, to enjoy this planet. I mean, I sometimes just go out driving and just look at the fields and the hills and the trees and the sky, and just, it's stunning, right? And we don't want to destroy it. We want to live responsibly with it, that we can, all our future generations can enjoy it as much as we do, while also having a better quality of life than we have. And I think that that is possible. So, well, this one went quite circuitous, a few different places, but definitely a fan of Earth Day. I like, there's a YouTuber I watch called Brooke Whipple, and she always says, get outside and get happy. And it's so true. Being in nature, I mean, and this is studied, researched over and over and over again. Even if you can't get outside, having a picture of nature, like a forest or a field of greenery, that can actually improve your mood. That's insane to me. Like, that, even just a picture of it can help us. Insane in the best way, like in such a positive way. So the earth is all we have. And don't let anyone tell you that going to Mars or somewhere is going to be our way out. If we can make it to Mars, we can make this planet and how we interact and live on it as sustainable. Like, we can do that. This planet deserves it. We deserve it. Happy Earth Day, right? So we made it this far. As always, thank you. Maybe like, subscribe, drop a comment, and let's work together. And let's be kind to ourselves and to others.